I'm Danielle, I'm 35, mum to 2 children and stepmum to 4, full-time. The person I care for is one of my children, Amy. She is 11. She recently got an autism diagnosis after a very long battle to get her needs assessed. She has sensory processing difficulties, she has a complex bowel issue, and major anxiety. So her care needs are quite severe and quite all-encompassing for us as a family and me as her primary caregiver. So from the minute I wake up, it's waking her up, which is tough in itself, and then helping her and supporting her deal with her anxiety and her feelings about the day that she's about to face. When we get to school, we hand over. That's not necessarily where my role finishes for the day, as it might for other parents. I often have to go back to school or have to speak to her on the phone because she is an incredibly complex child who will only open up to very few people. So school will recognise that she's not coping, but she won't be able to articulate what she's not coping with. And then after school, we get a very big period of processing time for her that can include screaming, shouting, physically trying to hit herself, hiding, vomiting sometimes if her anxiety is really high, crying. So again, my role then is to support her to be safe and process everything that she's feeling, and help her understand why she's feeling that and how we can move forward. And then as we get into the evening, the anxiety grows again about going to bed. She really struggles to separate from me at bedtime, and we don't sleep well. We are often up 3 or 4 times in a night, for anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour. So all through the night, her care needs continue, both for anxiety and her bowel need, because her bowel will stimulate through the night because of some medication she takes. So a lot of self-care needs during the night. And once we eventually get to what I call our big period of sleep, she sleeps, I prepare everything ready for what will be the next morning and the next bit of support that she needs. And then hopefully I manage about 3 or 4 hours before we get up and we start the whole process again.
I was living in Australia for 11 years, and then my mum was diagnosed in England with Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia. So I moved back to live with her and care for her. So I've been doing that for just over 3 years, 3 months, I think. I think that there's a lot of people struggling to get support, especially financial support. When I came back, I was applying for income support, was told I had to wait 3 months because I was new back in the country. Waited for 3 months, they then told me I wasn't entitled to income support because I wasn't entitled to carer's allowance for 2 years. So until I got carer's allowance, I couldn't get income support. And I ended up fighting for 9 months. I rang DWP 3 times about that, and each time they told me I wasn't entitled. Ironically, Mum ended up with cancer, and I went to a Macmillan coffee morning where there was a Citizens Advice Bureau lady for support with Macmillan support, and she said to me, "No, they're wrong. You're entitled to income support simply because you care for your mum." So 9 months later, I finally got income support. So I had 9 months of no income at all. So Mum was having to support me on her pension, which made things really difficult. Just another reason why I wanted to run away at the time. I thought I'd made things worse for her. And I then had to be in the country for 2 years before I could apply for carer's allowance, thinking that that was going to double my income. But actually, when it arrived, they deduct half of it from your income support. So you don't actually end up a lot better off. The thing that motivates me to keep caring for Mum is just feeling so happy that I have this time to be with her. She's disappearing slowly day by day, but I'm motivated to keep making, initially it was to keep making new memories. They have now become just for me because she doesn't remember 5 minutes ago. But so now it's about making moments. So just trying to keep her as happy as I can in the moment because she's only aware of the moment. And she is probably the kindest, loveliest, most non-judgmental person I know, it doesn't really take an awful lot of motivation to want to keep caring for her. I just want to do it for as long as I can. She's at a stage now where she can't really do a lot for herself other than washing and dressing with guidance. I have carer support in the morning because I was looking after my father at the end of last year. He passed away at the end of the year. So because of trying to care for two people in two different places, I got carer support at home. So I have carers that come in the morning to get mum washed and dressed, and then I get her ready for a day centre, make her lunch, sometimes have to drive her there or she gets picked up, and then I take care of her food at night, putting her to bed, obviously all her appointments, post and things like that, paying the bills. I think it's the most rewarding job I've ever done. Probably the hardest job I've ever done. I've had to educate myself a lot about dementia, and I've had to learn patience, which I had very little of. I think I'm still learning that, and flexibility, and I've had to learn to become unreliable. I'm always a reliable person that arrives early, and with the nature of her illness, that's just not always possible. We can be ready to leave 15 minutes early, and if she needs a toilet, then that's another 15 minutes gone. So, but yeah, it's definitely the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
I care for my mum. She's 92 in August, and she's got Alzheimer's. And I've cared for her for nearly 3 years now. We live together in a small cottage. I first started caring for her about 3 years ago, and I had a full-time job at that time. My dad had died and she couldn't live on her own, so she came to stay with me in my flat initially, but it was too difficult because there were stairs there, so we then moved into a small cottage in the grounds of the old house where I lived. And well, first of all I carried on working, but I had a sort of slight nervous breakdown because I found it very stressful. And I went to see my doc, and she said, well, you know, something's got to go. It's either your job, your mum, or you, and you don't want it to be you. So I thought, well, I don't want to put mum in a home, because she certainly didn't want to move into a home. And at the time we were both still grieving for my dad. My mum's, she's a lovely old lady, but she's not the mum that I know, always known. She's still got her intelligence, and she's still got logic, but she's got no memory. And she does now and again do crosswords. I sometimes think she's putting it on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her really, because she's just completed a crossword almost on her own. It used to be her favourite thing to do. I'd like to do a bit more of my painting, maybe try and sell some paintings. I used to have little exhibitions in all the libraries around Cornwall, and that was quite good fun. I would like to have more free time. I'd like to feel, I want my freedom back really, but it's not possible at the moment, and unless she goes into a home, then she would die if she went into a home. So, because I mean, she's aware of what's going on, and I think she would just, she still misses my dad and talks to him in the night time.
I'm currently a carer for my two sons. Previously, I was looking after both my mother and father, who passed away, my mum, about 4 or 5 years ago now. But currently, my eldest son has Asperger's, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and sensory issues. He's 21 and he's just leaving university currently and transitioning to work. And my youngest son, he's 16, he has type 1 diabetes, ADHD, dyslexia, and currently he's having some problems with anxiety and depression. With the diabetes, that is quite a fixed routine. My son has to test his blood sugars about at least 8 times a day. He has an insulin pump which is attached via tubing to his body, which administers insulin to him 24/7. and we have to program into the pump all the data for it to work properly. He's hypo-unaware at night, which means that his blood can dip quite low at night and it doesn't wake him up. So I have to check him in the night. Usually 3 a.m. is when it seems to dip due to the hormones in the body. So I usually check him around 3 a.m. But if his blood's been high before, or if he's eaten a large meal or exercised, then I'll check him other times through the night. So I may have to wake him up to have some sugar. My eldest son, who has Asperger's, he has difficulties with still executive function, so planning. Any change of routine is upsetting for him. So he needs to keep to quite a fixed routine, and he needs to be reminded to have his food and make sure he's got food and drink with him. He also needs to offload quite a lot emotionally, so if he's in late from uni, he's had a particularly difficult day, then he will need to sit and talk through. I think it was about an hour and a half last night while he was sort of offloaded, and talk things through. And then he doesn't sleep very well, so he'll get up in the night. But to actually process, it helps him to process what he's experienced through the day. And generally helping him with practical things that he has to do, forms, cooking, and being available for him. Obviously it's really, really rewarding to see them achieve things. For instance, I never thought my eldest would ever finish school, and he's now finishing university, so that's absolutely amazing. And I'm just so pleased for him, and that obviously they're my children, so I do things for them anyway, but to actually, and don't expect unconditionally, so don't expect anything, but to see that he's been able to achieve is absolutely wonderful, and it does make things worthwhile.
I think that a lot of people actually don't see it as being a really easy thing to do because they don't see what goes on behind closed doors. So for a lot of carers, when you have friends or guests that come round, your cared for pulls everything together to be normal and upbeat and happy. So quite often when people are leaving, they go, oh, she's all right. They think, oh, that's easy. So they don't really see the day-to-day, and the relentlessness of it is exhausting. A lot of them say they wouldn't care for their loved one, and they think it's amazing that I do, whereas for me it just seemed like the natural thing to do.
And I'm not sure that it's understood in society just how much the role is and the effects that it has physically and emotionally, well, on everything from the financial side of things to the emotional. I think lots of carers suffer with depression, so I don't think it's appreciated that carers need an emotional break really as well.
So sometimes complete strangers come up to me and say, you're doing a fantastic job, and so, which is quite nice, but it's also a bit odd.
I think friends and that, I think you cope. I think they don't realise half of the things you do.
No, unless you're living in the house with the person, they don't know everything.
No.
I mean, I do try to explain to my family, and sometimes they're astonished at some of the things, that are happening to my husband that they didn't realise, because they see us for a few hours at a time, but they're not there all the time.
I lost a lot of friends because I just couldn't go out and catch up with them, and they'd say, and
I think they think you're being antisocial, but it's
and then you get to the point
you can't go.
You can't go, and then you don't want to go.
Yes.
And you get to that vicious circle of they say, oh well, you can't be bothered.
And then they don't ask anymore.
And they don't ask, and they all just sort of drop away.
Once you as a couple are out of
circulation,
sight, you're out of mind, and your friends do drop off because you can't be involved in the social life that you were in before, but your friends do drop away.
I'm Bernie, and I'm one of the directors of Promas. We've been working with unpaid carers since 2011. My background is in mental health and education, And that's two of the things that we bring to a lot of the courses. So although we teach on the courses, Jenny and I, we also run the company and do everything that involves.
And I'm Jenny, and I'm the other director. And again, I've been working with Bernie for a long time, before we even started the business. But both had experience of caring roles, and we're very passionate about supporting carers to manage their caring role.
So we offer a variety of courses under every topic. So it might be stress management, coping strategies, helping to care for someone who's experiencing mental ill health. We run courses to help people learn new techniques and coping strategies, and in order really to help them maintain their own well-being and their caring role. We decided to apply for just a small amount of money from the lottery, wasn't it, to try a pilot.
So we tried a pilot. We only ran 4 courses, and we could have run about 8 courses.
Yeah, they were
and I
really
think they were. And I think what we realised right at that time, we did a lot of research, was the support for carers out there. There just wasn't a lot of support for them emotionally and psychologically, was there? And actually, so many carers become unwell because of their caring role.
And the biggest thing that came up was that carers didn't get any emotional support really at all. So we decided that we would write a course that are really, I suppose, essentially around personal development, and they help people to cope, to manage, to get different strategies, and help them to understand the illness of the person they're caring for.
And it just grew from there, didn't it? So it just grew, and we managed to get funding from the lottery. We've got the office, so we now have 5 bank tutors. So
funding from the council.
Yeah, funding from the council. So there is a big need out there.
I sat every course that was available, and that October they asked me to become a non-exec director. So now what I do is go to find support groups and talk to them about Promas, talk to them about what we offer and how it's benefited me, how it's helped me in my caring role. Yeah, which is a really rewarding thing to do. It's very easy to sell something that you 100% believe in and is completely free.
Say it changed my life has been an understatement. From day one, the support, the understanding, the light bulb moments on every course that I've done.
And it's just lovely to go there with other carers, and you completely forget your caring role for a few hours. And yes, I find it really beneficial. I can't tell enough people about it.
It was just such a welcoming, supportive environment. Within a few hours, my whole perception of my caring role and myself was beginning to change.
The guys I met at Promas are fantastic. That is something I do definitely want to say. I was very nervous and wasn't sure that I should be there. And actually, by the end of it, it was just like, I can't believe I had that thought. They were so open and honest and relatable that I've told everybody I know, literally everybody I know. Every time I see someone, I'm like, let me tell you about this thing I did, and let me tell you about these people, and let me tell you about this organisation.
You're not just on a course and it's left. You know, you seem to get continual help, which is lovely.
At least 3 times a year we go for a meal, which is paid for, unbelievable, by Promas. And yet they say there's no such thing as a free meal, but there is.